Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's so good to see some familiar faces and some new names. I'd like to just introduce myself. My name is Christy Johnson, and I serve as the Vice President for Development and External Affairs for the International Center. I'm also a proud alumna of the James T. Morris Global Leadership Series program, and I'm cohort 2022. The Morris Series has been recognized as Indiana's first and only global leadership development series, and it provides area leaders with opportunities to expand their global business acumen. So very quickly, the purpose of today's webinar is to provide Indiana's academics, practitioners, as well as professionals an opportunity to reflect as well as to respond to the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Last year, the International Center held a similar panel discussion with various organizations that were helping Ukraine. And today, we have a panel of professionals representing various fields, continuing these very important discussions. Here with me, we have our wonderful moderator, Dr. Sarah Phillips from IU-Bloomington. And again, I'd like to thank each of you for coming to the webinar, and I'll hand things off to Dr. Sarah to introduce our guests and our panelists. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Johnson. It's really a pleasure and a privilege to be moderating this panel. And just to say a little bit about myself very quickly, I am a professor of anthropology at IU-Bloomington. I am a specialist in Ukrainian studies. I've been studying Ukraine since the mid-1990s. And here at IU, I teach classes in cultural studies, medical anthropology, and many of my classes do pertain to Ukraine. I am also a proud member of the Indiana Slavic Choir that is based here at IU-Bloomington and performs across the state. And I'm also the coordinator of a program that another of our speakers today will say a little bit more about, the IU-Ukraine Non-Residential Scholars Program, where we virtually host some 69 scholars who are currently located in Ukraine, and we provide them with research support, with faculty liaisons, so that they continue their important research and teaching even under these very dire conditions. So without further ado, I'd like to kick our panel off by inviting each of our panelists to introduce themselves and tell us what they have been working on. And I'd first like to open the floor to Svitlana Raymer. So Svitlana, please, the floor is yours, and we look forward to hearing about all of your activities.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I greatly appreciate the introduction, and I just truly want to thank the International Center for bringing the audiences back to this conversation. When we had our original conversation in April of 2022, the full-scale invasion has just began, and we did not have a lot going on, but we brought some organizations who were trying to spur some efforts. But now, a year and a half later, the amount of initiatives and organizations from a variety of fields that are engaging in assisting Ukrainian Hoosiers and forging connections between Ukraine and Indiana is truly impressive and tremendous. And I'm so grateful to all the speakers who are here today to share. And my journey in the US started in 2008. So I'm born and raised Ukrainian. I was born in a tiny little town about an hour southwest of Kyiv called Fastiv. And its claim to fame is that it's the boyhood home of one of the co-founders of WhatsApp, Jan Koum. So if that helps you remember. And I attended Kyiv National University for my undergraduate degree, but then in 2008 had an opportunity to come to the US for a master's program, and I obtained my master's at East Carolina University and then went on to do PhD work at Penn State. Throughout my entire academic career, I have focused my research on Ukraine. My thesis was on destination image of Ukraine. My destination was on Ukrainian diaspora acculturation in the United States and how that affects their experiences traveling back home. And I worked a little bit in academia, a little bit in local government, a little bit in international affairs. And so, you know, every Ukrainian, you can ask them where they were and what they were doing on the morning of February 24th, and they will tell you exactly, because those moments when we first learned about the full-scale invasion are crystallized in our minds forever. For many of us, for myself included, that was the proverbial moment that split our life into before and after. That moment found me getting up in the morning, getting ready to go to work, and checking my phone and seeing 2 missed calls from my mom, and seeing a message that says we are being bombed. And so I started looking at the news, and I started trying to get a hold of my mother. I couldn't for about 2 hours while she was leaving the city. And so those 2 hours, when I had no idea whether I was ever going to speak to her again, whether she was still alive, was that moment where I knew something had to be done. And so not even a month later, I got together with some other members of the Ukrainian Hoosier community to create a nonprofit organization that would serve as a hub for Ukrainian activity in Indiana. We named this organization Ukrainian Society of Indiana, and we have launched together to do so many different initiatives. Our mission is to serve Ukrainian Hoosiers and friends of Ukraine through a variety of cultural, educational, and civic projects. We have gotten together at farmers markets. We have hosted Ukrainian performers. We have done volunteer projects together. We have launched so many different things. We have worked with local fire departments to collect bleeding kits, EMT supplies, to be able to send that over to Ukraine to assist. And so it's quite impressive. It's 100% volunteer-run organization. So we do not have any paid staff. We have a board, we have our executive team, and our volunteers. And in just a year and a half of functioning, of all these people who have other full-time jobs and a variety of other things that they have to do, we've been able to hold the first Ukrainian festival in Indy. With a grant from Indiana Language Roadmap, we have launched the first Ukrainian book club. And so it starts out here in the greater Indianapolis area. And so now the books that we've already read with the group here, we're sending them off to other cities. So our first 2 books have made their way to Fort Wayne to allow the community there to start the book club so that they could read these books in Ukrainian by Ukrainian authors. So it's really starting to have a statewide impact. We've partnered with Indianapolis Public Library to launch the first bilingual story time, which you will hear all about from Jessica. We're working to establish diplomatic representation for Ukrainians in Indiana through launching the position of an honorary consul of Ukraine to the state of Indiana. We obtained the first proclamation from the governor recognizing the Day of Remembrance of Ukraine. So for the Famine Genocide Day last year, we received that proclamation from the governor and held a rally on the Remembrance Day of the Famine Genocide. And we've helped establish Indiana's first sister city with Ukraine. It sounds kind of crazy, but before the start of the full-scale invasion, Indiana did not have any official sister cities with Ukraine. There's been some relationships where some humanitarian aid was sent through a different sister city, perhaps, but there was never an official relationship. And so this is sort of how I got involved in the work that I do now. I was approached at the beginning of 2023 by an international development organization called DI Global. They contract with a variety of government entities, with USAID, with UK government, with Euro Commission, to implement development projects across the world. And we have a really large portfolio in Ukraine. One of those projects really focusing on helping local governments in Ukraine go through the decentralization reform, a very important process for Ukraine. And many experts actually believe that the decentralization reform that started in Ukraine in 2016 saved Ukraine in 2022 when the first wave of invasion started, because the small communities were able to have the resources and decision-making power to thwart that first wave without having to wait from some directions from the central government. And so they reached out to me and asked me to join as a consultant and help them find communities in the US that would be interested in partnering with Ukrainian communities to establish these sister city relationships. 6 months later, we had 5 signed sister cities, 2 of them in the state of Indiana, including the very first Indiana sister city between Wabash and Korостyn. Now we have Monticello signed with Lubar, and we're currently working together with St. Mary of the Woods College on preparing Terre Haute for a potential relationship with Zahel, another sister city. We're also hoping to petition with the governor on taking these relationships and building a regional collaboration through a sister state or friendship state relationship. And so this project was very successful, and you can see the photos during my visit in August to Ukraine, meeting with these Ukrainian mayors and delivering gifts from their American counterparts, such as keys to the cities and flags of the cities. So those very classic diplomatic gifts. And after about 6 months as a consultant, DI asked me to come on board full time and continue this work. So this is now what I do as a senior communications manager for Ukraine projects at DAI. I oversee communications and creation of these types of partnerships and relations for all 5 of our projects in Ukraine. It's really exciting work. I wouldn't be doing anything else. I just came back from an in-country trip. We were in Ukraine for 10 days, working on launching up a new project that our company is starting there, a pro-integrity project aimed at battling corruption. So really, really exciting work, connecting a lot of communities in Indiana to Ukraine. Thank you.
So very exciting, Dr. Raymer. Thank you for this whirlwind tour through the amazing work that you've been doing, and we look forward to hearing more about it. Let's turn now for a self-introduction from Olga Vakulenko. Olga, the floor is yours. We're looking forward to hearing from you. I believe you need to unmute yourself.
Do you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Firstly, I would like to say my very warm appreciations to be invited to this event today, because despite on that, I arrived from Ukraine to USA, and I'm staying here during the war, but I became a very active part of the community for support Ukraine. That's why it's like my very important mission also to be here and to share with the community and with other people our activities, our contribution. And first of all, I would like to say about myself that I was born in Ukraine and have lived in Kiev for the last 20 years. I graduated from the economy and management department of Cherkasy State Technological University and got management of organization specialist degree with honor. I have 18 years broad-based experience in human resources management, and I arrived in the USA from Ukraine in September 2022 because of war as Ukrainian humanitarian parolee. From the early beginning, my goal was to improve my English skills in order to find a decent job. And I attended ESOL classes every day at 2 different schools during several months. And as a result, for my high academic efforts, I was chosen as the best student of the quota at the Crystal House Doors School. Also, I have completed the course and is certified in adult mental health first aid in June 2023. among that, in August 2023, I successfully completed the highest level of the English for speakers of other languages classes in Ivy Tech Community College. I was one of the first UHP program clients of the Burmese American Community Institute, and I take part actively in the office life of the BICI and been volunteering, and that's why I was invited to join the UHP team as a translator in January 2023, and then became a part-time case manager as well. My current responsibilities include providing interpretation, various assistance for Ukrainian humanitarian parolees, participating in different outreach activities, and providing mental health first aid for our clients as necessary. Most recently, I have been recognized for my hard work with the BICI by being invited here as a panelist for a Ukrainian webinar by the International Center. And I'm passionate about of all components of my life, and the most important of them are my son and active way of life. And like my drivers in my life is to be open-minded, trust your heart, trust yourself, live your dreams, and enjoy. These skills help me to be an active part of the community now and work at the Burmese American Community Institute, which is a non-profit organization founded in 2011 for providing educational and vocational support to the Burmese community in Indianapolis. Also, the BICI provides citizenship education and immigration services, employment assistance, basic needs, community health activities, as well as 3 separate programs for Afghan, Ukrainian, Cuban, and Haitian parolees. Since 2022, the BICI has been assisted Ukrainian humanitarian parolees with an immigration processing, public assistance applications, assistance with food costs before SNAP approval, housing and transportation assistance, job placement, career counseling, registration in English classes, and as well as other needs. And as a result, as of today, the BICI UHP team has assisted 50 UHP families and totaling 120 individuals. And the BICI UHP team takes part in different Ukrainian and international events in support of Ukraine, and also does outreach and educational activities for the community. For the end of my presentation, I would like to say that I'm happy to work with the BICI because I make as much as possible contribution to this horrible situation with my country, and I'm going to continue support Ukraine as much as possible. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Olga. What wonderful work. It's just amazing that you're here in Indiana and that you're using your skills and your expertise to help other communities of humanitarian parolees in this way. Just so inspiring.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yes. Turning now to Dr. Svitlana Melnyk, my colleague here at Indiana University, Bloomington. Dr. Melnyk, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Let me introduce myself. My name is Svitlana Melnyk, and I am a senior lecturer in the Department of Slavic and East European Languages and Cultures at Indiana University in Bloomington. and I'm also a faculty advisor for the students run Ukrainian Studies organization. And as a Ukrainian, I'm deeply grateful for the organizers of this timely and very, very important event. And I also would like to thank all the participants for their contribution. So I'm here representing the Bloomington Ukrainian community and our supporters, including the Indiana University community. And our Ukrainian community in Bloomington may be small, but it is vibrant and active. We have been organizing, thank you, Luba. We have been organizing educational and cultural events, fundraisers, workshops, peaceful rallies, vigils, exhibitions, and movie screenings in support of Ukraine. So it's very crucial to raise awareness about Ukraine, including its history, culture, and the courage and resilience of Ukrainian people who are fighting for their freedom right now. So on those slides, you can see pictures from our university rallies and vigils in support of Ukraine. And all these events I just mentioned, they are really very important, and each of them deserves a separate story. But as an educator and a university instructor, I would like to highlight just a few to demonstrate how our colleagues and students support their counterparts in Ukraine. And the next slide is the IU-Ukraine non-residential scholar program. Dr. Phillips just previously mentioned about this program. Sarah is serving as a program director, and the program has seen significant success. So under Sarah's leadership and with the support of various university units, including Robert Burns Russian and East European Institute and the Office of a Provost, 35 exceptional scholars in Ukraine were able to continue their research and writing and teaching in 2022-2023, supported by a stipend from IU. And they enjoyed library access, the opportunity for collaboration with IU faculty partners, along with professional development. And the program received extremely positive feedback from Ukrainian scholars, and thanks to Sarah's, I would say, tremendous efforts, it has been extended for this academic year as well, 2023 and 2024. And in the current academic year, 35 scholars continue in the program as continuing fellows, and they are joined by additional 34 fellows from Ukraine. And here in this picture, you can see the previous one. Yes, thank you. You can see the pages from the booklet created about the program. And I just want to say that I really admire what Sarah and my colleagues are doing to support Ukrainian scholars and our colleagues in Ukraine. So the next slide, this is the fundraising concert organized by the director of Friday Musical, Vicky King, and her students. The fundraiser was for the Delhi Academy of Contemporary Art to support students who were unable to pay their tuition because their fathers fell in the war. And members of the Bloomington Symphony Orchestra and Indiana Slavic Choir also participated in the fundraiser. In these pictures, you can see the members of the Indiana Slavic Choir, and the Vicky is in the middle. The next picture, this is Alexander, a student from the academy who was able to graduate thanks to the financial support of this fundraiser. The fundraiser was last year in November. Another project is the initiative of Irina Shishova, the owner, the previous, please. The previous slide, please. This one, thank you. the owner of Viridian Moon Gallery, and Irina has organized a fundraiser for the Academy students as well. She curates an exhibition showcasing the works of talented young students from the Academy, Salvador Dali Academy in Kyiv, accompanied by a print sale of their artworks. So the stories of these students, like Nadia's stories, are incorporated into each print. On this slide, you can see Nadia with her remarkable work, and I think it's amazing. She is such a talented young artist. And my students from the intermediate Ukrainian class translated the stories of the Ukrainian student into English, and so all those stories are included into the prints, and people know more. In order people know more about they are moving, really very touching stories about the war and how they survived the war. Also, finally, I would like to share with you some of the activities I have been doing with my students as a part of project-based learning. I asked myself how I can help Ukraine and how my students can help Ukraine, because they're really very interested in helping. They're really very motivated. So the first project was Mariupol Diary, proposed by Sarah Phillips. Thank you so much, Sarah, for your help. And this is real diary written by Yana Panova, who survived the occupation of Mariupol. She wrote the diary in Russian and then translated into English, and my students helped with the translation and editing of the diary to prepare it for the final professional editing. Also, we have started a project for the Dovzhenko Movie Center in Kyiv. The center has a list of 100 most popular Ukrainian films, and my students helped to translate the synopsis from Ukrainian into English. I just mentioned the Viridian Moon Gallery. We are working with the Viridian Moon Gallery as well. And the library project, students in my class write a blog for the local library in my hometown. So here you can see a blog about the collection of Ukrainian folklore in the university library, written by one of my former students, Sasha Stott. And finally, the Global Classroom Initiative, or the Global Classroom Project. This will be a part of my Intro to Ukrainian Culture class in the spring semester. So it is supported by the Global Classroom Initiative grant at IU. Students from IU will work on different cultural projects with students from Taras Shevchenko University of Kyiv, and they will learn from each other. So these are probably the students' projects, probably not very big projects, but I believe that every effort counts, and there are many ways to help and show solidarity, and it is very important for the younger generation to support each other. And thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be a part of this panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Melnyk. I love seeing all these connections that you're helping make between the students in your class and students and other young people in Ukraine. Those human-to-human, person-to-person connections are so important, especially during these times. And the kind of global cultural awareness that you're helping foster through your language instruction, but also these wonderful projects that the students and others are working on together. Congratulations, it's very meaningful work. We'll turn now to a self-introduction by Jessica Neeb-Smith. Looking forward to hearing from you, Jessica.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. So I'm Jessica Neeb-Smith. I work at the Indianapolis Public Library. I am the Herbert Simon Early Literacy Specialist. So that essentially just means that I plan and oversee programs and initiatives for kids ages 0 to 5 and their parents and caregivers and early childhood educators in Indianapolis and Marion County. Most of you are probably familiar with the Indianapolis Public Library, just in terms of the idea of what a public library is. But if you're not, it is the public library system that serves the city of Indianapolis. We have 25 branches. We've been operating in Indianapolis for 150 years. And so you can come do a lot of things at the library, including attend a bilingual story time. So we've been doing bilingual story times in Spanish and English bilingual story times for a while, a few years now. And we started those as a way to connect our Spanish-speaking patrons to the library, right? So that they felt like there was a place for them, because Indianapolis is home to people that speak so many languages. And we want them to feel like they belong at the library, just like anyone else. And so we had this sort of program already happening in Spanish, and then by some beautiful miracle, an opportunity was sort of placed in my lap, thanks to my friend and colleague, Sakura Fuqua, who is our immigrant and refugee program specialist. She connected me with the Ukrainian Society of Indiana back at the end of 2022, and we had been looking at ways that we could connect with the Ukrainian society and the Ukrainian community in Indianapolis. And so this idea of a bilingual story time in Ukrainian was sort of born from that. And we have hosted them ever since. We started at the beginning of this year, thanks to a really wonderful donation from the Ukrainian Society for an initial collection of books in Ukrainian. We have collections in many languages, but our Ukrainian collection was very sad before they donated a big chunk of books to us, children's picture books in Ukrainian. And since they have done that, they've also given us leads on where to buy more books in Ukrainian. So our collection has just blossomed. And so those books are available to people. And so we started this bilingual story time in Ukrainian as a way to connect with the new Ukrainian community that we were seeing in Indianapolis, but also for a way for our English speaking patrons to be able to learn and connect with the Ukrainian language. And so we've really seen through these story times that there is a desire for people to show their kids the Ukrainian language, and even if that's not the language that they speak at home. So we've been really fortunate to do these cool St. Nicholas Day celebrations, which you see right here. That is St. Nicholas. He's amazing. We actually just did a St. Nicholas Day celebration at our Nora branch like 2 weeks ago. And isn't that so sweet? The kids all chanted Papa Nikolai, which was wonderful. And I saw a little boy really excited because he got to see St. Nicholas. And so there were obviously Ukrainian children, but children just from the local library there. And yeah, I'm not the only one that does things in the library with the Ukrainian Society. I would be remiss if I didn't say that we have had concerts featuring Ukrainian musicians, and we are always looking for more ways to support and connect with the Ukrainian community in Indianapolis.
Thank you, Jessica. What wonderful, wonderful initiatives. So with all of this food for thought, let's move into a question and answer session. And there's a question at the top of my mind that might be on others' minds as well. And I'd like to ask Svitlana Raymer to address it first. Can you tell us more about the Ukrainian population in Indianapolis specifically, and how has it changed since the full-scale invasion?
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. So there's sort of the official data and the unofficial data. So this kudos for these numbers goes to actually to Peter Kirkwood, who's the chief of protocol at the International Center. And when the invasion first began, the governor's office requested this exact information, wanting to understand for the greater Indianapolis area and for the state of Indiana, in general, what is sort of the population numbers, distribution, and so what does all of that look like? And so the latest official data that was available at that point in time, and that was that is the 2019 census. So you can imagine how outdated that is. Census data becomes outdated the moment it's released, but so the official 2019 census data says there's about 8,300 of individuals of Ukrainian born and Ukrainian ancestry in the state of Indiana. It's quite obvious that that number is no longer even remotely true. Since the beginning of the invasion, a large number of people arrived in Indiana. Now, it's more difficult to keep track of Ukrainian refugees because the Uniting for Ukraine program is not set up in a similar way, such as, for example, the Afghan refugees who came in 2021, because that was a federal resettlement program that was run through the central government, and these refugees came in, settled in Camp Atterbury, and they were slowly processed out of that facility. And so there was a very easy way to track the numbers and track the paperwork. With Uniting for Ukraine being set up with individual sponsors, inviting Ukrainians to join them in the United States, it is a lot harder to keep track of that data. So we know that you know, for example, for Chicago, right, the hearsay, there's a center there that for assisting Ukrainian refugees. They say that at this point, Chicago absorbed like another 50,000 Ukrainians since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, right? So these are staggering numbers. And so considering the Northwest Indiana is starting to be sort of the suburbs of Chicago, Hammond and Munster, it's definitely a large growth of the population. In terms of distribution, Hamilton County, northern greater Indianapolis area, and Hamilton County have experienced quite a bit, just because, again, with the U4U setup, a lot of families bring their family members in, so it sort of strengthens that chain migration type phenomenon where areas that are already highly populated become even more highly populated. And then Northwest Indiana, Lake County, Elkhart area, Hammond, Munster, where it's closer to Chicago. Another challenge with the Uniting for Ukraine program is that it is not uncommon for individuals to find sponsors elsewhere, but then not come and live with their sponsors, but live in an area where other Ukrainians are, because there are more resources available in that place. So keeping track of population distribution because of the way the program is set up is very challenging. My hope is that once we finalize the establishment of the honorary consulate of Ukraine in Indiana and get the honorary consul into their position, there will be sort of a more concerted effort to get accurate information, because even USCIS can't really give reliable data, because again, if you have somebody getting a sponsor in Montana and then coming and staying in Chicago, it's not illegal, like according to the program. Like, you don't have to live with your sponsor if you don't want to. So we're hoping that once we get that diplomatic corps here in Indiana, we'll be able to track the numbers a little better.
Thank you so much. That's wonderful information, and I put a link to the Uniting for Ukraine program in the chat in case anyone's interested in learning more about that. I'd like to ask another question, really of all the panelists, but I will ask Olga Vakulenko if she could start us off. Really interested in knowing if there's one story in particular that stands out to you from your work with the Burmese American community organization, institute that you're working with, whether involving your own experience as someone from Ukraine or the other Ukrainians that you have been in contact with. Tell us a meaningful story from your experience.
Hey, Sarah, thank you for your question. there are a lot of brave journey stories from those Ukrainians the BICI assisted in Indiana, because every additional family is like an additional book, additional story with unique circumstances, unique struggling, overcoming issues. And my story is also like successful story in Indiana, thanks to support BICI mainly. And I would like also to share one more interesting story about our client who is a painter, and she was looking for some resources or organizations for collaborating and promoting her painting. And I connected her with the Ukrainian Society in Indiana, with Svitlana, and they collaborated at the Ukrainian Vyshyvanka event. Thanks to that, she sold some of her paintings at the charity auction. And after that, she became an active volunteer with this society and found some resources for promoting her paintings. And another one also very significant and fabulous story about one Ukrainian family which arrived with the children and their father from this family. She is so goal-oriented, so strong and supportive about his family that in one year before arriving, he found a good job, rented his own apartment, and became a sponsor for other Ukrainians. He sponsored some other Ukrainians through the UHP program, and they able to arrive to Ukraine and protect their families against of the war, thanks to his support.
Wow,
Thank you.
That's amazing. Such resilience, right? And a drive to help others in the same way that one has received assistance. That's amazing. Jessica Neeb-Smith, how about you at the Indianapolis Public Library? Do you have a story or two that stands out for you?
Yeah, I was really moved when I have been to our Ukrainian story times by the real sense of community that has seemed to be built from, you know, just this like half-hour reading of some picture books, right, and singing some songs. Like the children and their parents are so excited to see one another again, and maybe they see each other more regularly than this, but it seems almost like a time and a place for them to just catch up and be among people that speak their language, that understand their shared experience. And the kids are just so happy because there's always well, at least at the special St. Nicholas Day ones, right, there's like candy and treats, and the adults have coffee and tea, and they really just like they stay for a long time. It's not just a half-hour story time, it's a place. The library has become a place for them to gather and belong. And so that's just really, I don't know, it's really heartwarming to see that connection is working.
That's fantastic. And when I think of libraries, Jessica, I think of them as a place for community, right? And a place of refuge and a safe place. And it certainly sounds like that's the ambiance that's created there at the Indianapolis Public Library for the Ukrainians. So I know many of us are wondering how we can get involved, right? So how folks across the state can help contribute to support of ongoing initiatives and helping maybe seed new initiatives to help the Ukrainian community in Indiana. So beyond financial donations, which are wonderful, how can folks step up? How can folks get involved with the work that all of you are doing? What kinds of volunteer opportunities are there, and what kinds of skills are you looking for in volunteers? And maybe we'll turn to Svitlana Melnyk first. I know the work that you do is in some ways limited to the university, but in other ways it's also much more broad.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sarah. That's a wonderful question, and it's very important question. And I think we as educators can do what we do the best. We have to educate, and it's very important in under this horrible circumstances, just to teach the community, and maybe to teach our students how to use the correct terms, the correct language about the situation in Ukraine. So it's not the Ukraine. Unfortunately, still people are using this particular term, the Ukraine. It's not the Ukraine. This definite article refers to the colonial status of Ukraine. Ukraine is now an independent state, and we have to respect the choice of Ukrainian people. So that's the Ukraine, not the Ukraine, but that's Ukraine. Another important issue to pay attention to the terms regarding to the war. It's not just a war in Ukraine. It's the Russia's war against Ukraine, and I think to identify the aggressor is very important here. And also, we have to talk more about resilience and the resilience of Ukrainian people who are fighting right now for their independence, and to support, to show moral support and solidarity with the young generations, with students, maybe students' projects, and communication with students in Ukraine, different webinars, meetings, formal, informal meetings with the Ukrainian students will be really very helpful, I think. Thank you.
Wonderful ideas. Svitlana Raymer, please tell us how interested people can get involved in the work of the Ukrainian Association of Indiana, or any of the other initiatives that you're involved in.
Yeah, absolutely. So starting kind of on a more broad level, one of the things that I would recommend for anyone who is interested in helping, supporting the issue overall, is please reach out to your representatives. Let them know that this is an issue that's important to you, and that continuing support from the United States to Ukraine is very important to you, right? We are seeing what's happening in Congress. There's failure after repeated failure to pass the supplemental emergency assistance because the voice of the constituents needs to be stronger, right? There's a very dangerous narrative that's going around how it's costing the United States too much. That's simply incorrect. Supporting Ukraine is actually very beneficial to US foreign policy. The United States is able to weaken one of its largest adversaries without a single American boot on the ground, and with about less than 5% of the total defense budget. If that's not a good investment for America, I really don't know what is. And anyone who says otherwise hasn't looked at the numbers. It's also really boosting internal production. So there's a really neat map that you can find online about the amount of positive economic impact on the different states who produce parts for the different weapons, and how it's boosting that production because more is needed. So it's really getting our own economy into a better place, positioning America as a leader in the world with actually a comparatively very small amount of money compared to our own defense budget. So that's something that's really important to understand for people and to communicate that to their legislators who might be resistant to those thoughts. For anyone who wants to get involved at a really deep level, the Uniting for Ukraine program still exists. If you're willing to host someone, you're certainly welcome to do so. Please do understand that it's a great deal of responsibility. We have seen situations where somebody invites a person in on a sponsorship and then turns out that there are cultural differences, there's all these medical expenses, and you have to drive people places, and so just know that is a responsibility, that you're taking a person in for potentially 2+ years. And so I'm sure Olga can talk to that more, because they've actually been helping a lot of people who have been in difficult situations where the sponsors didn't necessarily realize what they were taking on by bringing in a Ukrainian family. So the program is there. Please participate if you are able, if you're willing, but be mindful, very mindful about the level of responsibility that involves. I would say that here locally in Indiana, if you think, you know, I know we've got quite a few people on the call from all over the state. If your local community is interested in having a conversation about a partnership through a sister city or a friendship city with the Ukrainian community, I'm more than happy to sit down with your local government and explain the process. It's very streamlined. It's part of a federal program, right, funded by USAID. So we have a very streamlined process of how to make it happen. That makes it a lot easier for the community. It's a much smaller lift for them, because all of the paperwork, all the templates, all of that is already in place. And then for the Ukrainian society, we are always looking for volunteers. We're always looking for people to attend our events. So I would highly encourage people to check out our Facebook page. We have a good listing of upcoming events. We are a membership-based organizations, families. We have family-based memberships, and it's only $40 per year for a family to be members of the society. And that's the funding that allows us to continue our programming, to purchase books for the book clubs, to rent spaces for the community events, to bring the community together, to buy refreshments, to buy candy for the kids, for the bilingual story times, and the coffee and tea for the parents. So all of this really helps us to give back into the community, because again, we're 100% volunteer-run organization. We don't have any staffing expenses. We do all of this with our own time, with our own money. So all of the donations or membership fees that are given to the Ukrainian society go straight back into the community to benefit the cohesion of Ukrainian community in Indiana. So I just wanted to make that really, really clear to people.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Svitlana. I'm sorry to say that we are nearing our time coming to a close here together. This has been a terrific conversation. Svitlana Raymer, I'll just say we had one question in the chat. Is there a good website to see these numbers? So perhaps if you have that at your fingertips, you could drop that in the chat for our colleagues who are interested. I'll just say thank you to all of our wonderful panelists, to Svitlana Melnyk, Svitlana Raymer, Olga Vakulenko, and Jessica Neeb-Smith. Thank you for teaching us today, letting us learn from you. And I want to really commend the International Center for putting together this wonderful event and helping keep Ukraine and the war against Ukraine and the vitality and resilience of the Ukrainian people top of mind for all of us. And I also want to commend you for spotlighting the voices and the expertise of Ukrainians themselves. That is so important. And thank you for putting this together. And it's been a pleasure to moderate this discussion. And now I'll hand the word over to Dr. Christy Johnson to close out our event.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sarah, and thank you to our panelists. Thank you to our guests who've joined us today. But I'd also like to take an opportunity to thank our interns, Love and Amelie, for organizing this event. Today's program, International Connections, Indiana and Ukraine, is just one of the webinars that we provide in addressing global issues. And so be on the lookout for additional topics that address different regions of the world. So please connect with the International Center on our social media platforms. Stay connected to all of our events, but also I'd like to invite you to check out the various organizations here represented, including the Burmese American Community Institute, Ukrainian Society of Indiana, and the Indianapolis Public Library to stay connected to events as well as other updates. We also want to take this opportunity to thank our sponsors for the 2023 year. Again, thank you to everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.